The morning sun cast long shadows across the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford as Captain Sarah Chun completed her pre-flight inspection of the F-35 Sea Lightning II. Her hands moved with practiced precision over the aircraft's sleek surfaces, checking every detail that could mean the difference between life and death. The salt air carried the usual sounds of carrier operations, but today felt different. Today, something was wrong. Sarah had been flying combat missions for 8 years, longer than most pilots in the Navy. Her call sign Phoenix had been earned the hard way during her second deployment when she'd successfully ejected from a damaged aircraft over hostile territory and survived 3 days behind enemy lines before rescue arrived. That experience had taught her to trust her instincts, and, right now, every instinct was screaming danger. The intelligence briefing earlier that morning had been routine on the surface. A standard reconnaissance mission over the disputed waters near the Strait of Hormuz, where tensions had been escalating for months. The Navy SEALs of SEAL Team 6 had been conducting covert operations in the region for weeks, gathering intelligence on enemy positions and capabilities. Everything was supposed to be quiet, controlled under the radar, but Sarah noticed details others missed. The way Commander Rodriguez's jaw tightened when he mentioned the mission timeline. The slight hesitation in Lieutenant Walsh's voice when he discussed the extraction coordinates. The fact that they were launching her alone instead of with a wingman, which violated standard operating procedures for flights over hostile territory. Her crew chief, Petty Officer Martinez, approached with a final systems check. "All green across the board, Captain. She's ready to fly." Martinez had been working on carrier flight decks for 15 years and had never lost a pilot to mechanical failure. His thoroughness was legendary among the squadron. Sarah climbed into the cockpit, her movements automatic after thousands of hours of training. The F-35's advanced systems came online with a soft hum, displays lighting up with information about weather, navigation, and threat assessment. The aircraft was a technological marvel, capable of speeds exceeding Mach 1.6 and equipped with the most advanced radar and weapons systems ever deployed on a carrier-based fighter. But there was one system Sarah wasn't supposed to use. Buried deep in the F-35's electronic warfare suite was an experimental active radar array, codenamed Lighthouse. The system could penetrate enemy stealth technology and electronic countermeasures with unprecedented accuracy, but it also broadcast the aircraft's position to every enemy radar within a 100-mile radius. Using Lighthouse was like lighting a flare in a dark room while wearing a target on your back. The order had been cleared during her briefing. Maintain radio silence, use passive sensors only, and, under no circumstances, activate the Lighthouse system. The mission was supposed to be a ghost run, invisible and undetectable. As her F-35 catapulted off the carrier deck with a bone-jarring acceleration, Sarah felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with every launch. The aircraft climbed rapidly through the morning sky, leaving the carrier far behind as she headed toward her assigned patrol area. The Persian Gulf stretched endlessly below, its blue waters hiding secrets that nations would kill to protect. 20 minutes into the flight, Sarah's passive sensors detected something that made her blood run cold. Multiple radar signatures were converging on a position roughly 30 miles northeast of her current location. The signatures matched the profile of enemy fast attack boats and patrol aircraft, moving in a coordinated pattern that suggested a planned operation rather than routine patrol. She checked her navigation system and felt her stomach drop. The convergence point was exactly where SEAL Team 6 was supposed to be conducting their extraction. According to her mission briefing, the SEALs should have been picked up by submarine 12 hours ago and be safely aboard a friendly vessel by now. But the evidence before her suggested otherwise. Someone had either blown the SEALs' cover or the extraction had failed, leaving them stranded in hostile territory with enemy forces closing in from all directions. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities, none of them good. She tried to raise the carrier on a radio, but got only static. Standard procedure called for radio silence during reconnaissance flights, but this was an emergency. She adjusted frequencies and tried again, still nothing. Either her communications were being jammed, or the carrier was maintaining strict radio silence for reasons she didn't understand. The enemy radar signatures were moving faster now, clearly homing in on something. Sarah realized with growing horror that 267 Navy SEALs might be trapped on the ground with nowhere to run and no way to call for help. These weren't just any SEALs either. Team 6 represented the absolute elite of American Special Operations Forces, men who had spent years training for the most dangerous missions imaginable. Sarah faced an impossible choice. She could follow orders, maintain her position, and hope that the SEALs could handle whatever was coming their way. Or she could risk everything to find out what was really happening, potentially saving the lives of nearly 300 of America's finest warriors. The weight of command settled on her shoulders like a lead blanket. Every pilot understood that sometimes you had to make decisions that went beyond training and protocol. Sometimes you had to choose between following orders and doing what was right. As she watched the enemy signatures continue their relentless advance toward the SEAL position, Sarah made her decision. She banked the F-35 toward the northeast and pushed the throttles forward, her aircraft's twin engines responding with a surge of power that pressed her back into her ejection seat. The morning sun climbed higher into the cloudless sky as Captain Sarah Chun flew toward what might be the most important mission of her career. Behind her, the carrier continued its patrol route, unaware that one of their pilots was about to break every rule in the book to save the lives of men she had never met but was sworn to protect. The Persian Gulf stretched endlessly ahead, its calm surface hiding the deadly game of cat and mouse playing out beneath the waves and in the skies above. In less than an hour, Sarah would face a choice that would define not just her career, but her entire life. The lighthouse system waited in her aircraft's electronic suite, ready to illuminate the darkness, but also to paint a target on her back that every enemy in the region would see. Time was running out, and Sarah knew that whatever happened next would determine whether 267 of America's elite warriors lived to fight another day or disappeared forever into the unforgiving waters of the Persian Gulf. The F-35's engine screamed through the morning air as Sarah pushed her aircraft to its operational limits. Below, the Persian Gulf transformed from peaceful blue waters to a battlefield she could barely comprehend. Her passive sensors were painting a picture that defied everything she had been told about this mission. 12 fast attack boats had formed a search pattern around a small rocky island that wasn't supposed to exist on any of her charts. The boats were moving in perfect coordination, their crews clearly trained for this exact scenario. Sarah counted at least 40 personnel visible on deck, all armed with assault rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. These weren't casual patrol boats, they were hunters. Her aircraft's advanced imaging system revealed the truth that made her hands tremble on the flight controls. The rocky island was actually a partially submerged oil platform, its superstructure disguised to look like natural rock formations from a distance. Someone had spent months, maybe years, preparing this location as a trap. On the platform's makeshift landing pad, she could see bodies, dozens of them, scattered across the metal decking in positions that suggested they had fought hard before being overwhelmed. Sarah's training kicked in as she began a tactical assessment, counting casualties and looking for signs of life among the fallen. That's when she saw them. A group of approximately 50 figures huddled behind what remained of a damaged communications tower on the platform's eastern edge. They were still moving, still fighting, still alive. Even from her altitude, Sarah could see muzzle flashes as the trapped SEALs returned fire against their attackers. Her heart sank as she realized the full scope of the disaster below. The intelligence had been catastrophically wrong. This wasn't a simple extraction point. It was a killing field. Someone had leaked the SEAL team's position and timing, allowing enemy forces to set up an elaborate ambush. The SEALs had walked into a trap that had cost them more than half their number. Sarah's radio crackled to life suddenly, breaking the silence that had surrounded her for the past hour. The voice was desperate, barely audible through heavy static and the sound of gunfire. Any friendly aircraft? This is ground team actual. We're taking heavy casualties and running low on ammunition. Request immediate air support at coordinates. The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by the harsh buzz of electronic jamming. Sarah tried to respond, but her communications were being blocked by sophisticated jamming equipment. The enemy had thought of everything, cutting off the SEALs from any hope of calling for help. The trapped warriors below were fighting blind, with no way to coordinate rescue or extraction. The tactical situation was worse than she had imagined. The fast attack boats had positioned themselves in a perfect circle around the platform, making water extraction impossible. Any rescue helicopter would be shot down before it could reach the landing zone. The SEALs were trapped with nowhere to run and no way to fight their way out against overwhelming odds. Sarah pulled up the F-35's weapons inventory on her display screen. 2 AIM, 120 air-to-air missiles, designed for engaging enemy aircraft. For small-diameter bombs, perfect for precision strikes against ground targets. A full load of 25 millimeters ammunition for her internal cannon. Under normal circumstances, it would be more than enough firepower to turn the tide of any engagement. But these weren't normal circumstances. The enemy had positioned their forces with calculated precision, using the trapped SEALs as human shields. Any direct attack on the fast attack boats risked killing the very men she was trying to save. The platform superstructure was too damaged to provide adequate cover, and the SEAL's position was too exposed for close air support. Sarah's mind raced through tactical options as she maintained her orbit high above the battle. She could attempt hit and run attacks on individual boats, but that would only work if she could identify targets that weren't threatening the SEAL position. She could try to draw the enemy fire away from the platform, but that would leave the SEALs vulnerable to being overrun by ground forces. Then, she remembered the lighthouse system. The experimental radar array could do more than just detect enemy positions. According to the classified technical manual she had studied months earlier, Lighthouse could also disrupt enemy communications and navigation systems. The powerful active radar pulses could overwhelm electronic equipment within a significant radius, effectively blinding enemy forces that relied on modern technology. But using the system would also announce her presence to every hostile radar in the region. Within minutes, enemy surface-to-air missiles would be launched from positions she couldn't even see. Fighter aircraft would scramble from nearby airfields. Her single F-35 would face overwhelming opposition with no support and no backup. The radio crackled again, weaker this time. Ground team actual to any station. We have critically wounded personnel requiring immediate medical evacuation. Estimate 15 minutes of ammunition remaining. Request you relay our position to 6th Fleet Command. Sarah could hear the desperation in the voice now, the controlled panic of a professional soldier who knew he was about to die. These men had families, children, dreams that would never be fulfilled if she didn't act. They were counting on her, even though they didn't know she existed. She thought about her own family, her parents in California who worried every time she deployed, her younger brother who had followed her into the Navy and was currently serving aboard a destroyer somewhere in the Mediterranean, the career she had worked so hard to build, the respect she had earned from her fellow pilots, the future she had planned. All of it would be gone if she activated the lighthouse system. The Navy would court-martial her for violating direct orders. Her career would end in disgrace, her reputation destroyed. She would spend years in military prison, assuming she survived the next hour. But 267 SEALs would live. Sarah's hands moved to the weapons control panel with steady determination. She activated the F-35's electronic warfare suite and began the startup sequence for the Lighthouse radar array. Warning messages flashed across her displays as the system powered up, each one reminding her that she was about to cross a line from which there would be no return. The first active radar pulse from the Lighthouse system erupted from her aircraft like an invisible explosion, flooding the airspace around the oil platform with electromagnetic energy. Below, she could see the immediate effects as enemy boat crews suddenly lost communications with their command structure. Sarah banked her aircraft into a steep diving turn, using her speed and altitude advantage to set up attack runs on the enemy forces. The lighthouse system painted every target with crystal clarity, showing her exactly where to strike for maximum effect while minimizing risk to the trapped SEALs. The morning sun climbed higher into the clear sky as Captain Sarah Chun committed herself to the most dangerous mission of her career. Behind her, carrier-based radar operators watched in shock as their ghost reconnaissance flights suddenly became visible to every enemy system in the Persian Gulf. The battle for the 267 SEALs of Team 6 was about to begin in earnest. The lighthouse system's second pulse revealed the true horror of the situation below. Sarah's enhanced radar showed 217 bodies scattered across the oil platform, their heat signatures growing cold in the morning sun. The ambush had been even more devastating than she had initially realized. Only 50 SEALs remained alive, huddled behind increasingly inadequate cover as enemy forces closed in from all sides. Sarah rolled her F-35 into a steep dive, targeting the northernmost fast attack boat that had moved dangerously close to the platform. Her first small-diameter bomb struck the vessel amidships, the precisely guided munition punching through the boat's hull before detonating. The explosion lifted the entire craft out of the water, sending debris and bodies flying in all directions. The effect was immediate. The remaining enemy boats began taking evasive action, their coordinated attack pattern dissolving into chaos as commanders lost communication with their subordinates. The lighthouse system's electromagnetic pulses were wreaking havoc with enemy electronics, but Sarah knew the advantage would be temporary. Her radio, suddenly, burst to life with clear transmissions as the jamming equipment on the destroyed boat went silent. Phoenix, this is ground team actual. We have you on visual. Thank God. We thought we were abandoned down here. Sarah keyed her microphone while setting up for another attack run. Ground team, this is Phoenix. I'm going to try to clear you a path to the water. Can you reach the southeastern corner of the platform? Negative, Phoenix. Too much open ground, and we've got wounded who can't move. We need to hold this position until extraction arrives. Sarah's heart sank as she processed the tactical reality. The SEALs couldn't move, which meant she had to eliminate the threat rather than simply creating an escape route. 12 fast attack boats, each carrying 20 to 30 enemy personnel, plus an unknown number of forces on nearby platforms, and boats that were just now appearing on her radar. Her second bomb struck another boat, this one carrying what appeared to be command personnel based on the sophisticated antenna array mounted on its superstructure. The explosion was larger than the first, suggesting the vessel had been carrying ammunition or fuel in addition to personnel. But even as Sarah pressed her attack, new threats were materializing. Her radar warning receiver began chirping frantically as multiple surface-to-air missile systems locked onto her aircraft. The lighthouse system that was saving the SEALs below was also painting a target on her back that every enemy gunner within 50 miles could see. 2 missiles launched simultaneously from a concealed position on a nearby oil platform. Sarah threw her F-35 into a violent evasive maneuver, deploying chaff and flares while diving toward the deck to break the missile lock. The first missile lost tracking and exploded harmlessly in her aircraft's wake, but the second one stayed locked on despite her countermeasures. Sarah pulled her aircraft through a punishing 9G turn that pressed her deep into her ejection seat and grayed out her vision. The missile overshot her turning radius and self-destructed after losing target acquisition, but she knew her luck wouldn't hold much longer. Phoenix, we're taking heavy fire down here, came the urgent call from the trapped SEALs. They're moving assault teams onto the platform from the south and west. We can't hold both directions much longer. Sarah could see the enemy tactics developing below. While she had been dealing with the surface-to-air missiles, fast boats had maneuvered to offload assault teams directly onto the platform. Armed figures in black combat gear were advancing on the SEAL position, using the platform's twisted wreckage for cover. She lined up for a strafing run with her 25mm cannon, but the tactical situation was a nightmare. The enemy assault teams were intermixed with the SEAL defenders, making it almost impossible to engage without risking friendly fire. Sarah needed pinpoint accuracy in a rapidly changing environment where the difference between friend and foe was measured in feet, not yards. The lighthouse system provided the solution she needed. Its enhanced target discrimination could identify individual personnel based on their equipment signatures and movement patterns. American military gear had specific electromagnetic characteristics that the system could distinguish from foreign equipment, even at close range. Sarah activated the cannon's precision targeting mode and began her attack run. The F-35's gun blazed to life, sending 25mm rounds downrange with surgical accuracy. Each burst was carefully calculated to eliminate enemy personnel while avoiding any risk to the trapped SEALs. The effect was devastating. Enemy assault teams that had been advancing confidently behind cover suddenly found themselves under fire from above with no place to hide. The platform's metal decking provided no protection against armor-piercing rounds delivered with precision that bordered on supernatural. But Sarah's ammunition was limited, and new threats kept appearing. Her radar showed 4 more fast attack boats approaching from the east, these ones larger and more heavily armed than the vessel she had already engaged. Worse, her fuel gauge was showing that her combat maneuvering had consumed fuel at an alarming rate. "Phoenix, this is Overlord," came a new voice on her radio. She recognized the call sign of the carrier's Air Operations Center. "You are ordered to return to base immediately." "Acknowledge." Sarah's jaw tightened as she processed the implications. Overlord had been monitoring her transmissions and tracking her position. They knew exactly what she was doing, and they were ordering her to abandon the SEALs to their fate. "Overlord, this is Phoenix. I have American personnel under fire requiring immediate assistance. Request permission to continue mission." "Negative, Phoenix. You are in violation of direct orders and engaging without authorization. Return to base immediately or face court-martial proceedings." Sarah looked down at the platform below, where 50 of America's finest warriors were fighting for their lives with almost no ammunition left. The enemy assault teams were regrouping for another attack, and the approaching fast boats would arrive within minutes. If she abandoned the SEALs now, they would all be dead within the hour. "Overlord, Phoenix copies your transmission," she replied calmly. "Be advised I am experiencing communication difficulties and cannot comply at this time." Sarah switched off her radio and activated the lighthouse system for its most powerful pulse yet. The electromagnetic burst was strong enough to disrupt electronics on the carrier 70 miles away, ensuring that Overlord would lose track of her position for at least 15 minutes. Below, the SEALs continued their desperate fight as enemy forces prepared for what would likely be their final assault. Sarah had perhaps 10 minutes of ammunition remaining and enough fuel for maybe 20 more minutes of combat operations. Against her, an enemy force that seemed to grow larger with every passing minute. The morning sun beat down mercilessly on the Persian Gulf as Captain Sarah Chun prepared to make her final stand. The odds were impossible, the situation hopeless, but she had made her choice. The 267 SEALs of Team 6 would not die alone on that platform, not while she still had rounds in her gun and fuel in her tanks. The battle was far from over, and Sarah intended to make every shot count. The 4 approaching fast attack boats had split into 2 groups, executing a pincer movement designed to overwhelm the platform from multiple directions simultaneously. Sarah realized with growing dread that these weren't the same poorly coordinated forces she had been fighting. These boats moved with military precision, their crews clearly trained for exactly this type of assault. Her remaining ammunition indicator showed less than 300 rounds of 25mm cannon fire. 2 small diameter bombs left. No air-to-air missiles, since there had been no aerial threats to engage. Against an enemy force that now numbered over 200 personnel, her firepower seemed laughably inadequate. The lighthouse system detected movement beneath the water surface that made Sarah's blood run cold. Sonar signatures indicated at least 6 combat swimmers approaching the platform from below, carrying what appeared to be demolition charges. The enemy wasn't just planning to overrun the SEAL position. They intended to destroy the entire platform with everyone on it. "Ground team actual, "This is Phoenix," Sarah called as she lined up for another strafing run. "Be advised you have underwater demolition teams approaching from multiple directions. Estimate 5 minutes until they reach your position. Copy, Phoenix. We don't have any way to deal with underwater threats. Can you engage them from the air?" Sarah's heart sank as she considered the tactical impossibility of what was being asked. Her weapons were designed for surface and air targets, not submerged swimmers. The 25mm cannon rounds would lose velocity and accuracy within inches of hitting the water. Her bombs were too powerful to use near the platform without risking the lives of the men she was trying to save. But she had to try something. Sarah activated the lighthouse system's most powerful setting, flooding the water around the platform with electromagnetic pulses strong enough to disrupt the combat swimmers' breathing apparatus and navigation equipment. It was a desperate gamble that might buy precious minutes, but it wouldn't stop determined professionals for long. The first pair of fast attack boats opened fire with mounted machine guns as they approached the platform's southern edge. Heavy caliber rounds tore through the twisted metal wreckage that provided the SEALs' only cover, forcing the defenders to pull back toward the center of the platform, where they would be even more exposed. Sarah dove toward the lead boat, her cannon blazing with carefully controlled bursts. Each round had a count now. There was no ammunition to waste. The boat's forward machine gun position exploded under her fire, but the vessel continued its approach with other gunners taking up firing positions. Her fuel warning light began blinking insistently as she pulled out of the attack dive. Sarah checked her remaining flight time, 8 minutes at current consumption rates. After that, she would be forced to head back toward the carrier or risk running out of fuel over hostile territory. The SEALs below would face their final moments alone. The second wave of fast attack boats had reached the platform's northern edge and was offloading assault teams onto the metal decking. These weren't the hastily organized fighters she had faced earlier. These men moved with the confidence and precision of elite military units, advancing in coordinated fire teams that used mutual support to overcome the SEALs' defensive positions. Sarah realized with dawning horror that she was watching a carefully planned execution. The enemy had known exactly how many SEALs would be on the platform, exactly what their defensive capabilities would be, and exactly how to overwhelm them. Someone with access to classified American intelligence had planned this entire operation. "Phoenix, this is Ground Team Actual," came the call she had been dreading. "We're down to our last magazines. They've got us surrounded, and we can't hold much longer. I need you to relay a message to our families." Sarah's hands tightened on her flight controls as she processed what the SEAL commander was really saying. He was asking her to witness their final moments, to carry the story of their last stand back to the families who would never see them again. It was the final duty of warriors who knew they were about to die. "Ground team, this is Phoenix. I'm not taking any messages because you're all going home. Hold your position for 90 more seconds." Sarah didn't know where the confidence in her voice came from, because she had no idea how to make good on that promise. Her weapons were nearly exhausted, her fuel was critically low, and the enemy forces seemed endless. But something deep inside her refused to accept defeat, refused to let 267 American warriors die on her watch. The lighthouse system's tactical display showed her something that sparked a desperate idea. The combat swimmers had planted their demolition charges on the platform support pillars, but they hadn't armed them yet. The charges were connected to a central detonation system that required a specific radio frequency to trigger. Sarah activated her electronic warfare suite and began transmitting on every frequency the lighthouse system could access. If she could find the right signal, she might be able to detonate the charges prematurely before the assault teams could overrun the SEAL position. The risk was enormous. A premature explosion might collapse part of the platform, potentially killing the very men she was trying to save. But if she did nothing, the SEALs would be overwhelmed within minutes anyway, and the charges would be used to eliminate any evidence of the massacre. Her transmissions found the target frequency, and Sarah felt her aircraft shudder as a massive explosion erupted beneath the water surface. But instead of damaging the platform, the blast created a massive underwater shockwave that disabled the approaching combat swimmers and capsized two of the enemy boats. The explosion also had an unexpected secondary effect. The electromagnetic pulse from the detonating charges interfered with the enemy forces' communication systems, leaving assault teams stranded without coordination or support. For the first time since the battle began, the enemy was as blind and isolated as the defenders. Sarah pressed her advantage immediately, diving toward the confused assault teams with her remaining cannon ammunition. Without their command structure, the enemy fighters lost their coordinated advance and began falling back toward their boats. The SEALs, recognizing the opportunity, launched a counterattack that caught their attackers off guard. But Sarah's fuel gauge was now showing critical levels. She had perhaps 4 minutes of flight time remaining, barely enough to make it back to the carrier if she left immediately. The decision she faced was stark: abandon the SEALs to an uncertain fate or stay and fight until her engines flamed out, guaranteeing her own death in the waters below. Her radio crackled with a transmission that changed everything. "Phoenix, this is Cavalry 1. We have you on scope and are inbound to your position with full air support. Hold your position and mark targets for engagement." Sarah's heart leaped as she recognized the call sign of the carrier's emergency response squadron. Somehow, her actions had convinced higher command to authorize a full rescue operation. 4 F/A 18 Super Hornets were approaching at maximum speed, armed with enough firepower to eliminate every enemy force in the area. But they were still 6 minutes away, and Sarah's fuel would run out in 4. The SEALs below were holding their own against the disorganized assault teams, but more enemy reinforcements were visible on the horizon. The battle that had seemed hopeless was about to become a race against time that would determine whether any of them lived to see the sunset. Sarah armed her last 2 bombs and prepared for the most important attack run of her life. The 267 SEALs of Team 6 had fought with impossible courage against overwhelming odds. Now, it was her turn to show them what impossible really meant. Sarah's fuel gauge displayed the brutal mathematics of her situation: 3 minutes and 40 seconds until flameout. The approaching Super Hornets were still 5 minutes away, racing across the Persian Gulf at maximum afterburner, but fighting against time and physics. In the gap between salvation and destruction, 50 Navy SEALs continued their desperate fight against enemy forces that seemed determined to leave no witnesses. Her last 2 small-diameter bombs had to count for everything. Sarah activated the lighthouse system one final time, using its enhanced targeting capability to identify the most critical threats to the SEAL position. The system painted 2 targets that could change the entire tactical situation: a command boat coordinating the assault teams and a heavily armed patrol vessel moving to cut off any possible escape route. The command boat was positioned 300 yards north of the platform, well within the blast radius that might affect the SEALs, but far enough away to minimize casualties. Sarah armed her first bomb and rolled into a steep dive, her F-35's targeting system calculating wind speed, target movement, and blast effects with mathematical precision. The small-diameter bomb separated from her aircraft with a soft thump, its guidance fins adjusting continuously as it tracked toward the enemy vessel. Sarah pulled out of her dive and immediately turned toward the second target, knowing she would have only one chance to get this right. The explosion lit up the morning sky as 250 pounds of high explosive detonated directly beneath the command boat's fuel tanks. The vessel disappeared in a fireball that sent burning debris raining down across a quarter-mile radius. More importantly, the electromagnetic pulse from the explosion destroyed the enemy's remaining communication equipment, leaving their assault teams completely isolated. Sarah's second bomb targeted the patrol vessel just as it opened fire on the platform with heavy machine guns. The precision-guided munitions struck the boat's ammunition storage compartment, creating a secondary explosion that was even larger than the first. The blast wave shattered windows on nearby vessels and sent a towering column of smoke climbing into the clear blue sky. With her bombs expended, Sarah had only her cannon and less than 200 rounds remaining. But the tactical situation had shifted dramatically in favor of the defenders. The enemy assault teams, cut off from command and support, were beginning to withdraw toward their remaining boats. The SEALs, sensing the momentum change, pressed their counterattack with the ferocity that had made them legendary. Sarah's fuel warning system began its final countdown sequence. 2 minutes until engine flameout. She could see the smoke trails of the approaching Super Hornets on the horizon, but they were still too far away to provide immediate support. The battle would be won or lost in the next 90 seconds, and Sarah intended to make every one of them count. She dove toward the remaining enemy boats, her cannon firing in short, precise bursts that conserved ammunition while maintaining maximum effect. Each round was aimed with surgical precision, targeting weapon positions and command personnel rather than attempting to sink entire vessels. The psychological effect was devastating as enemy crews realized they were being hunted by a pilot whose accuracy bordered on supernatural. "Phoenix, this is Cavalry 1, came the urgent transmission. "We have you on visual. Your aircraft is streaming fuel vapor. Do you have an engine fire?" Sarah glanced at her engine display and felt her heart stop. Her starboard engine was indeed showing signs of fuel system damage, probably from debris during one of her low-level attack runs. She had been losing fuel faster than her gauges indicated, which meant she had even less time than she thought. "Cavalry 1, this is Phoenix. Negative on engine fire, but I'm showing fuel system damage. Estimate 60 seconds until I have to punch out." "Roger, Phoenix. We're 90 seconds out. Can you maintain station until we arrive?" Sarah looked down at the platform below, where 50 American warriors were still fighting for their lives against an enemy force that outnumbered them 4-1. The SEALs had never abandoned her during the darkest moments of the battle. She wouldn't abandon them now. "Negative, Cavalry 1. I'm staying until the job is done." Sarah turned off her fuel warning systems and pushed her throttles forward, coaxing every last drop of performance from her damaged aircraft. The F-35 responded sluggishly, its computer systems automatically reducing power to compensate for the fuel leak, but it was still capable of one last attack run. Below, she could see the enemy forces beginning a final, desperate assault on the SEAL position. They knew reinforcements were coming and were trying to eliminate the witnesses before American air power arrived in force. Machine gun fire raked across the platform as enemy fighters advanced behind a wall of suppressing fire. Sarah lined up for her final strafing run, her cannon loaded with the last 180 rounds of 25mm ammunition in her aircraft. The lighthouse system painted each target with crystal clarity, showing her exactly where to place every shot for maximum effect. This wasn't just about tactics anymore. It was about honor, duty, and the brotherhood that bound all American warriors together. The cannon blazed alive for the last time, sending a stream of armor-piercing rounds downrange with precision that defied belief. Enemy fighters who had been advancing confidently moments before suddenly found themselves under fire from above with nowhere to hide. The platform's metal decking provided no protection against rounds delivered with computer-assisted accuracy. Sarah's ammunition counter reached 0 just as her starboard engine began its death rattle. Fuel vapor streamed behind her aircraft in a visible trail as the F-35's flight systems struggled to maintain control. Warning lights flashed across her cockpit displays like a Christmas tree, each one announcing another system failure. But she had done it. The last enemy fighters were retreating toward their boats, their assault broken by the combined fire of the SEALs and her surgical air support. The platform was littered with enemy casualties, but the 50 defenders were still alive, still fighting, still undefeated. "Phoenix, this is Cavalry 1. We are engaged and taking over the battle space. You are ordered to eject immediately. We have rescue swimmers standing by." Sarah looked down one last time at the men she had fought so hard to save. They were standing now, some waving at her aircraft as the Super Hornets roared overhead with enough firepower to eliminate every remaining threat in the area. The 267 SEALs of Team 6 had suffered devastating casualties, but the 50 survivors would live to fight another day. Her hands moved to the ejection handles as her port engine joined its companion in failure. The F-35 was falling out of the sky, its damaged systems no longer capable of sustained flight. But Sarah felt no fear, only a deep satisfaction that came from a job well done against impossible odds. The ejection seat fired with a bone-jarring acceleration that pressed her deep into the cushions. Below, her F-35 tumbled toward the Persian Gulf like a wounded bird, its mission complete. Sarah's parachute deployed automatically, lowering her gently toward the sun-warmed waters where rescue swimmers were already racing to meet her. 3 hours later, Captain Sarah Chun sat in the carrier's medical bay, her flight suit replaced by a hospital gown and her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that she couldn't seem to stop shaking. Outside her window, she could see the helicopters returning from the platform with the wounded SEALs, each aircraft representing lives saved by her decision to break every rule in the book. Commander Rodriguez entered the medical bay with a folder thick enough to represent the end of her career. Court-martial proceedings, disciplinary action, possible prison time for violating direct orders, and engaging enemy forces without authorization. Sarah had known the consequences when she activated the lighthouse system, and she was prepared to face them. But Rodriguez surprised her by closing the folder and setting it aside. "Captain Chun, I've just finished debriefing the SEAL team commander. He wanted me to tell you something." Sarah looked up from her coffee, unsure what to expect. "He said that 267 SEALs went into that mission, and 50 of them came home because of you. In his opinion, that makes you one of them. Team 6 doesn't forget its own." Rodriguez handed her a small metal pin that she recognized immediately. The special warfare insignia of the Navy SEALs, unofficially known as the Budweiser for its eagle, anchor, and trident design. It wasn't an official decoration, but it was worth more than any medal the Navy could award. "The investigation will probably clear you," Rodriguez continued. "The intelligence failure that led to the ambush goes all the way to the top, and you saved American lives when the system failed them. But even if it doesn't, you did the right thing." Sarah pinned the insignia to her hospital gown and smiled for the first time in what felt like days. Outside her window, the Persian Gulf stretched endlessly under a setting sun that painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in that vast expanse of water lay her F-35, its lighthouse system finally, silent after illuminating the darkness when it mattered most. The 267 SEALs of Team 6 had learned the hardest lesson of warfare, that sometimes the greatest victory is simply living to fight another day. And they had learned it from a female F-35 pilot who risked everything to save lives, even when saving them meant breaking every rule she had sworn to follow. The forbidden radar had revealed more than enemy positions that day. It had illuminated the true meaning of honor, duty, and the unbreakable bond between warriors who put service before self. Captain Sarah Phoenix, Chun had earned her call sign all over again, rising from the ashes of a doomed mission to save the lives of men she had never met, but would now call brothers for the rest of her life.